The Calgary Flames have a lot to learn and a lot of catching up to do this next season. Here's how they can learn from the Nashville Predators.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If this is your first time, hi, hello, welcome. My name's Jess, and this is Locked On Flames, where we talk about the Calgary Flames 5 days a week during the season and 3 days a week during the summer. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you like what you hear and you want to stick around and learn more about the Flames, subscribe. Make sure you're following us wherever you get your podcasts. And this is just part one of this great collaboration between Bryan, Bastin, and Jeff Middleton, who Bryan covers the Nashville Predators for On the Forecheck and Renegade of Puck. And Jeff is very much like me, where he covers multiple teams. He covers the Preds and Calgary, which is why, we kind of brought him in for this, because he can weigh in on both teams. And there's just so much to talk about. I had to split it into two parts. So I hope you enjoy this first part, and I will see you on the flip side.
Night in the NHL, so it's always nice to get together and do stuff like this.
Yes.
What is it? Pretty good.
Yeah.
Can't complain.
Wonderful. So today we are going to basically just run through what I would say like a customer service survey. You got your agree, you strongly agree, your agree, and then and disagree. So, all right, are we ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Oh yeah, we're doing this for the Flames and Predators, by the way. That might.
Yeah, there's a lot in common. There's a lot. I came to Jess because there's a lot in common with these two teams, and they kind of would be in different. I think if you ask the fan bases, I think the fan bases would have different views of that. But I wanted to get a group because I think there's a lot of similarities, and I kind of want to compare. Maybe that's because I want to feel better about the Predators, or worse, depending on how it goes. But I think it'd be a fun recap and thing to kind of do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I see the Preds as a team that's, again, kind of in that middle, doesn't really know if they're good or bad. And that's the Flames in a nutshell. So, was this the right time for the Nashville Predators to rebuild?
I'm going to start and say disagree, because I think it should have happened a couple of years ago. I understand that they had just come off of firing Peter Laviolette, and they thought that John Hines would kind of push things in the right direction. Plus, there was the issue of the pandemic season and everything. But I think this team, what we see now in the roster and the attrition and the dead cap money, I think is a product of waiting just a little bit too long. And so I would say disagree, but not as strongly, because it could have been worse.
Yeah, I'm going to go same pretty much. I think that the Flames should have done this a few years ago. Based on what I've read and gathered, the franchise has never done like a true rebuild. It's just kind of been like plugging the holes and hoping the boat doesn't sink.
Right.
So, I do think that this is just a little too late.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm on the disagree train as well. Bryan knows I've been an advocate of the rebuild train for about probably 3 or 4 years now. And I think, like you said, like you said, Jess, I think that, they've done a good job of plugging the holes that they've had, and they've been able to kind of scratch their way into the playoffs the last few years because of that. But, I think this is, if they're going to do it, this is kind of their last chance, and they took advantage of that. I think they should have done it earlier. So I don't know if it was the right time. I feel like their right time was a couple years before this, but I'm not mad about them choosing to do it now of all times.
Well, and that follows or leads us into the next question. Did they start the rebuild when they should have?
So I wonder, because I feel like I think they should have started maybe 2 years ago personally. And I think, I don't know. I could understand maybe even after last season, but again, like this is last year was the first year Nashville hadn't made the playoffs in several years. They were having a fantastic season out of Jusse, fantastic seasons out of Saros, franchise leading performances out of Forsberg and Duchene. So I can understand why they didn't want to slow that down. But I think we all saw kind of where the roster didn't get any better than it was the year before. And so that's why, they didn't perform very much better than they did the year before. So, I mean, I really think that maybe 2 years ago would have been great, but I just don't think that anybody in the organization would have done it then either, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same again for the Flames. I think that if they really wanted to rebuild, it should have been 2020, 2021 at the absolute latest, just because, you still had core pieces under contract. Sean Monahan, Mark Giordano, Kachuk, Gaudreau, Sam Bennett. So there were pieces to move that really could have gotten you something, and now they're just existing.
Yep.
For sure. I think, like I said, I've been a proponent of it for happening for like the last 2 or 3 years, probably even 4. But I mean, I think part of me wanted it to happen last year just because I figured that the guys who had career seasons weren't going to be that good again this year. And, they wanted to, you'd figure they'd want to capitalize on that kind of performance. But they didn't. I mean, they still got a haul for the Predators, still got a haul for Tanner Jeannot, so I guess they can't really complain on, taking advantage of guys who had career years. But yeah. I mean, I think that would have been the reason for them to do it last year, was because statistically speaking, there weren't going to be many guys who could replicate the kind of production that they had that year, and it just didn't seem from like an outside point of view that they were going to go anywhere. The teams in the West, even for Calgary, like the teams in the West were consistently getting better, and they were just kind of in the same spot for a couple of years. I mean, Calgary was good division wise, but they never, did relative to some of the powerhouses in the West. I didn't think that they would stack up well against them, but
right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Daryl Sutter said it himself. Whoever's going to play Colorado was just going to waste 4 games, basically. And he wasn't wrong. But thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Locked On Calgary Flames. We are going to take a quick break here to talk to you about FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right, just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting from everything from the money line to the over-under. And, I like to bet how many, over-under Garrett Cole strikeouts, and all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There is no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Wait, I lied. Let me redo that. Do we feel confident in the direction of the franchise with front office hires and new coaches?
Yeah, for Nashville, I think absolutely. I think this was, I think the only, guy that I think I would have liked more than Brunette getting hired for Nashville would have been Spencer Carberry for Washington, which is also a very, very good hire. But I really like Andrew Brunette, what he's come in and done, his philosophies that he has shared with us so far. They only had to replace one coach, and so they brought in Derek McKenzie, which I think is also going to be a really good hire there. And then the rest of the coaching staff, you look at it, these are guys that you do want to keep around. You've been Vanderklok and goaltending. No reason to mess with a good thing. The best 2 video guys in the entire game, Lawrence Filoni and Andrew Milosh, like you don't mess with that. And then Todd Richards and Dan Heinold, there have been improvements since both of those have been added to the staff. And so as far as it goes with coaching staff, I think it's absolutely the right move. So I'd say strongly agree there. But then when it comes to, hockey ops and the front office, I mean, the big one is going to be the change from David Poile to Barry Trotz, which, again, I think Poile's time was done. I think that was the reason why I think the rebuild time extended out a little bit longer than it should have. But, I think it was time for him to go. So I'm not going to say completely that I disagree, but there's a lot of questions out there with Trotz and his philosophy. Most fans have liked a lot of what he's done, barring some of the buyouts and movement of some of the favorite players. But, it's a huge question mark as to if that's going to translate into success as a GM. So I'm going to just say, as front office and and coaching staff goes, I'd say agree. Not quite enough to say strongly agree, but I feel pretty good about it.
Well, that's a lot better than how I feel. I mean, I'm just kind of like stuck in the middle here because Craig Conroy is coming in to clean up a decade of Brad Treliving's mess. And it probably, it's not entirely Conroy's fault that he hasn't been able to trade players. It's tight cap time, players are or teams are they're pinching pennies. They're not able to, really move what they might want to move and what their returns might look like. So, I think that it was a very smart idea to hire Ryan Huska. I really, really like the Mark Savard hiring. I think that that's going to be absolutely incredible for the team and for him as just a person. He's great. And of course, I really was hoping Mitch Love would stay in some capacity, but good for him for going over to Washington. Yeah, wish him well.
So I have a question for you two guys as Calgary fans. A guy that Nashville no longer has and now is on the Flames roster is Dan Lambert. Is he expected to come in and be the power play or special teams coach?
Yes, I think so, right? I mean, that was the kind of, but I think, I'm in the same boat with you, Jess, is I kind of don't know how to feel about all that. I don't think you can get much worse on the power play than last year. No. So, Dan Lambert, as much as his time in Nashville wasn't all that exemplary of how good of a coach you can be, I mean, why not, right? But I wish Mitch Love was still around. What he did with the Wranglers was awesome. I was of the opinion that he should have been giving the head coaching job, but after reading why he wasn't given it, I understand it. And I think Ryan Huska is going to be, I think he'll be fine. I'm a big fan of the Mark Savard hire. I love that one. And I think Craig Conroy has been also, to agree with you there. I think he's been kind of cleaning up a lot of things, just messes with individual players and what happened last year and all this other kind of jumbled stuff that he has to kind of sort through. There's people that want to leave because of last year. There's a bunch of player turnover. It's just kind of a mess. And it's been a hard offseason for them. I mean, he had to trade Tyler Toffoli, who was their best player arguably their best player last year. It's just a lot for him to sort through. So I feel like I can't really judge him off, what he's done this offseason. I thought his draft was pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't have an opinion on him as a GM just yet, but I'm relatively positive on what he's done so far.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's way too early to make any sort of decision or a fair judgment. I mean, he was with the organization, if he's been with them for a very long time. So he was familiar with what was going on. And it's not like an outsider was plucked and put in and then just had to only go off of what they're hearing. So
for sure.
I definitely think that I'm a big fan of the internal hires. I've said that a lot on this show just because of how it's safe. It's a safe decision. You're not getting too creative, which is fine. That you don't need to do that right now. But all right, let's see. Do you feel confident in the direction of the franchise with how free agency has been handled this offseason?
So I guess we should also include trades and things like that too. This is tough, honestly. There have been a lot of things that had to be done. Moving Ryan Johansson, retaining half of his salary, moving him to Colorado. I think that's the Predators have been trying to move Johansson for the last 2 or 3 off seasons. It feels like, whether the rumors were not, or were true or not. I think that was something that seemed inevitable, and honestly, I think 50% retained on that was just kind of the cost of doing business there. I think that was just you weren't going to do very much better in that. But on the other hand, then you have things like the Matt Duchene buyout, which Jeff and I have talked about at length. And I know Jess, as a huge Matt Duchene fan,
I know biggest Matt Duchene fan.
I know you would.
I was gonna say. I mean, I just ripped to my boy, ripped to my guy.
The 30-second version of it is that I understand that the no movement contract and the no trade clause were going to kick in the day after he got moved or he got waived, but I think that you take a chance because you still had to buy him out, and he's going to be on your books for what? Let's see here. Duchene's getting paid for at least 6 more years, 1.5 million by the end of it.
My God.
But that's 2.5 next year, 5.5 the next year, 6.5 the year after that. So I mean, you're losing.
Andrew brought in a coach that teaches a system that is to Matt Duchene's play style. Why not? Like I think that's the part that I have.
If you're going to buy him out, why not wait until next year and then you only have to do 4 years? I mean, that was the issue that I think we all have with it, because you're just eating that money now. And yes, you get some short term, but I mean, like, they get their most cap relief this first year, and then the second and third years are going to be even less each year. And so it's kind of like, year 3 is kind of when you'd want that space back, but they can't do that. And so I understand. I think, it's a Barry Trotz thing, kind of clearing the table of some of the deals that were set up with him. But you look at that, and then you look at Luke Schenn and Gustav Nyquist, which I get that Nashville needs warm bodies, but I don't see a lot for either one of those players. I think that Gustav Nyquist could be a candidate to be better. I don't have that much faith in Luke Schenn, as Jeff will agree with, I'm sure. There was Denis Goryanov, which I've always liked him as a player. I think he'll be
fine. Yeah.
He'll be interesting. But
didn't
then you go
Ryan
O'Reilly. That was the one I was going to get to. That was one of those.
Okay.
I think. Oh no problem. But I mean, like, that was a good one, and I think that would go in the class of like ones I really like. In addition to re-signing Cody Glass and Alex Carrier, which avoided arbitration, and I think they both got more money than I was expecting them to. But these are guys I think are going to be really, really vital to the future of the team. And then, Kiefer Sherwood, always a huge fan of him getting re-signed. And then big guys down from Milwaukee. So, I mean, for the most part, I'm pretty happy with it. It's almost hard for me to decide, because I understand that you're not going to be satisfied with free agents when your team is kind of broken apart and ripped in pieces like Nashville is. I mean, there's going to be no Matthias Ekholm. There's going to be, there's no Matt Duchene. There's no Ryan Johansson. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of things that have completely changed. No Tanner Jeannot. I mean, you could go on and go on. And so I would say I'm going to lean towards just barely agree, just for the fact that this isn't a team that's meant to contend. And so I don't think that I can be too disappointed that they do it, but I don't like how a lot of the stuff was handled, but that's just me.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Locked On Calgary Flames. We are going to take a quick break here.
And because, they already have spots for them. But yeah, I think the next step for the Flames is just kind of, they're just a little bit behind in the fact that they still need to see what these guys can do for a longer period of time at the NHL level.
Yeah. I will say, when we get talking about goaltenders, I have my thoughts on Calgary's goaltender situation. So,
oh boy,
yeah.
Let's see. Are we confident in the direction of the franchise with the draft picks from this past draft in Nashville?
Yeah. Yes. Again, this is hard because I'm not going to lie and tell you that I have really great knowledge on all of these prospects. I know them more now, obviously. I will say one thing is that I thought they would have walked away with a little bit more, whether that was in the realm of picks in the following year or players, roster players, things like that, or actual prospects. But obviously a lot of trades, especially the one where we heard a lot about trading Saros leading up to it. Then there was the day of where people were talking that they were trying to move up into fourth by trading Askarov, which I'm glad didn't happen there. I really wish that they would have focused a little bit more on defense in the top 2 rounds, just because I think Nashville's really, really thin in their prospect pool, which is something Nashville's probably not used to. But I mean, 4 of the guys that are, going to be on the NHL roster for defensemen, 4 out of the 7 are over the age of 31. So, that's
Wow.
Ryan McDonough, Roman Josi, Tyson Barrie, Luke Shen. So yeah, I mean, but then you go and look at these guys, and you've got Melendick, who just drafted this year, not going to see him. Spencer Stastny, who I think will make the jump. Mark Delgaizo's fine. Jack Mateer, Luke Prokop, guys that I don't think we're going to see in the NHL. So, there's guys that, if they need them to step up this year, in a year where you've got a bunch of 30-plus-year-old veterans in the defense core, this, outcome of the season doesn't necessarily matter. You want to get some time for some of these young guys, but there's not a ton, in my opinion. And, if they were going to skip on our boy, Jeff and I's boy, in the first round twice, I would have liked them to load up defensively on the next couple of picks, and they just didn't do that. I do like these guys that they've got, but I don't know. I think I would have liked them to stock the cupboard just a little bit more, seeing as they had so many picks. And if that guy wasn't there, then, turning that into something else. So again, I'm going to say just barely leaning agree.
Yeah. Again, just kind of, I guess I'd agree. I thought that the Flames really would have, they were never going to trade up for the 3rd spot with Elias Lindholm. That was never going to happen. Flames fans took that and ran with it. I never saw a world where that was going to happen. But I mean, their first round draft pick seems like a really, again, it's just the hope, the potential of these kids blossoming into NHLers. Everyone, I mean, I don't know a lot about them, to be entirely honest, but it feels like it was a solid draft pick year for the Flames. I really thought that they were going to move Noah Hannafin at least before the draft was over.
I thought they would move somebody before the draft was over. Like, even if it wasn't Hannafin, I thought it was going to be just one of their guys.
So I have to ask you, Jeff. One,
Yes.
do you agree with us on both the teams? But 2, who do you think fared better as far as the draft went?
I think I agree. I think it's I was a little underwhelmed by both, to be honest, for different reasons. But I think I was more underwhelmed with the Preds just because of the amount of draft picks that they have that they could have used in different ways on different players. As much as I like Tanner Molendyk, I think he could have been a 2nd round pick. I think they could have, I think they could have picked somebody, or they could have moved up. I don't think that would be likely, but I think they could have done more with, their 24th overall pick, their Oilers pick from the Ekholm trade.
Right.
But yeah, I think both of them had a good draft. I'd say I'm not upset with how it turned out. I don't think they had bad drafts. I'd say they're above average, but I think the Preds was a little bit more underwhelming just because I went in there thinking that they could get, these undervalued, skilled players that could use a little work. If you trust your development team to fix them, they're going to be superstars or stars, top 6 players, good upside. But it just kind of didn't feel like that. They did that to me. But yeah, I'd say I'd agree with you guys. I'm optimistic about the two different teams' draft classes, but I was a little underwhelmed still.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.